My name is Jon Hall. I'm from the United Nations Development Programme, and I'll just speak briefly about some of the ways I see happiness is important to development work more generally. Last year was a dire year for the planet. I think it's all too obvious that the Earth's warning signals are flashing red. Wildfires in Australia, of course, in California, in the Pantanal in Brazil, even in Siberia, record-breaking hurricanes in the Atlantic, and of course, the continuing collapse of the world's biodiversity with some 70% of wildlife lost in the last 50 years. Humanity is at war with nature, and this is a war we can never win. Of course, COVID-19 has been a very clear warning of what has come and what will continue to come from our ever-tightening grip on nature. COVID-19 has been a development crisis, unprecedented. And of course, there have been terrible health impacts around the world, but also impacts on so much more things that matter about development. Inequality, in particular, in many forms. Many of those already worse off in the world have been hit hardest by COVID. They've lost their chance to go to school, to work, to earn income, and so much more. So the crisis has driven a wedge into existing inequalities and pushed them apart. And yet, despite a year of turmoil that we've had from this pandemic, the data shows that happiness has been extraordinarily resilient over the past year. Even though many of the things that our happiness depends on, the pillars that support it, have been hit so hard, the data also suggests that some of the aspects of life which we know are very important to happiness, things like whether we trust our government and institutions and whether we trust each other, these have also been critical in how countries have been able to respond to COVID-19. Because if you're in a society where you don't trust your government to do the right thing, people are much less likely to follow policies on things like social distancing or lockdowns or mask wearing. And of course, we've seen that right around the world in how countries have dealt or not dealt with the pandemic. And this shows, I think, once again, that while pursuing happiness for any society is important in its own right, pursuing happiness is also important for a great many other reasons. Here at UNDP, when we talk about well-being, our focus is really on human development, which is essentially empowering people everywhere with the freedom and the opportunity to live the best lives they can. And the data shows reassuringly that human development is very strongly correlated with happiness at the national level. And that's what we'd hope, of course, because if we development professionals think we're raising development, but happiness isn't changing, then are we truly raising development? The two areas generally go hand in hand. Here at the UN, the last Human Development Report, which came out in December 2020, was on the Anthropocene, the age of humans, the age in which humans have become the dominant force shaping the planet. We recognize that development cannot come at the expense of the planet. COVID-19 has shown the perils of that. For too long, debates about development have been framed as a choice between saving people or saving the planet. But we can't do one without the other, because planetary and social imbalances interact. Inequality in a society can lead to environmental degradation, and environmental degradation can lead to more inequality. And these social imbalances can also make it much harder to find the solutions we need if we're to tackle environmental problems. And just ask any government that has looked at introducing a carbon tax about those issues. So policies that promote happiness are often much gentler on the environment than those that promote economic growth. And as happiness also goes hand in hand with a more pro-social attitude in society, it can also mean that happier societies are more likely to cooperate to find the solutions we need to find if we're to reduce our greenhouse emissions, as well as many other environmental impacts. And so on International Happiness Day, I am more convinced than ever that governments should pursue the greatest happiness for the greatest number as an overarching goal. This is not only worthwhile end in itself, it is also one of the means to many other ends that are all vital for global development.